It was bright enough that it illuminated the ground.
It just kind of caught my imagination.
I got to look inside, and it had really small chairs.
We have this concept of the people from other planets as little green men.
George, there's at least 70 different species, and probably more.
When it comes to news, all roads lead to Las Vegas, one way or another. My name is George Knapp, and I've worked as an investigative reporter for more than 35 years. During that time, our team has encountered and uncovered crimes, corruption, cover-ups, and characters in this target-rich environment of the unusual. And we've learned a few things: that secrets can and are being kept, that legitimate mysteries still exist, that conspiracies are sometimes all too real. Mystery Wire is the name of a new project, the world's largest archive of journalistically vetted news stories, interviews, and special investigations into unusual subjects that might otherwise be overlooked. We've traveled all over the West, all over the country, and around the world to find the most credible sources, scientists, investigators, and evidence in an attempt to understand perplexing, persistent questions, the kind that everyone ponders from time to time. UFOs, for instance. Public interest in these unknown aerial objects has ebbed and flowed for at least 70 years, but in December 2017, media coverage exploded when an authentic UFO video from the Pentagon was unleashed. The so-called Tic Tac UFO had been recorded on video back in 2004 by the USS Nimitz carrier group off the coast of Southern California. The video was made public concurrent with a front-page story in the New York Times. That report ignited a firestorm of interest, and suddenly UFOs were all over the news, all over the world. Mystery Wire was and is on the cutting edge of that controversy. We broke story after story about ATIP, the secret Pentagon study of UFOs that had been underway for more than a decade. The senator who initiated the secret project, Harry Reid, gave us his first on-camera interview.
The way these things are described and the way people see them, if this movement took place in anything we have now available to us, it would kill everybody. They couldn't withstand those G-forces. Something sitting there and boom, down it goes.
In Washington, Pentagon officials were overwhelmed with questions but declined to say much. Mystery Wire went to the source, career intelligence officer Lue Elizondo, who for a decade was assigned to secretly study dramatic encounters between the U.S. military and unknown craft. He instigated the release of other UFO videos, including this object, the gimbal UFO, which buzzed the U.S. Navy in 2015.
We're going against the wind. The wind's 120 knots from the west. Look at that thing, dude.
Soon after he left the Pentagon, Lue Elizondo sat down with us for his first long-form interview. He admitted cases like the gimbal and Tic Tac are not isolated. I was told by someone that one reason that you left your job is because there are other Tic Tac incidents since then, also dramatic, perhaps with increasing frequency, and that this is not unusual anymore.
So, forgive me, Mr. Knapp, if I can't answer this question as completely as you would like, because there are some sensitivities, and I'm no longer employed by the U.S. government, so there are some left and right limits I have to pay attention to. I'm still bound by my non-disclosure agreement. I still have a security clearance, or at least I think I do. So as a result, I have to be a little bit mindful of that. But I will tell you that the Nimitz is simply an example of one case, one event in time of many that we looked at. And I think that is why this is so important, because it's not a single incident. Don't believe me. Don't look at it just one time and say, hey, we saw this thing and we don't know what it is, and therefore all of a sudden we all need to now engage on this. When it continues to happen as a pattern, that is when we get to the point where we now become increasingly concerned. Because it's not an anomaly, now it's a trend. And if it's a trend, then we need to look at it, right?
Instead of broadcasting just a few sound bites, Mystery Wire provides the entire conversation with Lue Elizondo, raw and unedited. Full-length interviews are one of the key features of the website. Here's another one.
Who are these guys?
Are you guys watching us?
A compelling and exclusive conversation with an unlikely UFO luminary, rock star Tom DeLonge. He created a company called To the Stars, which was largely responsible for the New York Times story and the release of the Pentagon UFO videos. DeLonge spent years cultivating sources within the Pentagon and finally got them to open up. It wasn't easy.
One of the advisors, the number one advisor, I had to fly out to a certain spot and walk through a bunch of security and then go around the corner to the back of this weird room and sit there for 2 hours. And the very first thing this person said to me was, "I don't think you can keep a secret," and stares at me in the eyes. And I just go, I remember I was sweating bullets and I was like, I've never been asked to. I've never been asked to. And then the conversation went from there. It says, "We found a life form."
We found a life form.
We found a life form. And then that conversation changed my life. Not only did I know this stuff was real, but like in my heart I knew it was real, but it's so different when you have a person like that saying it to you, knowing who this person is and where they come from.
So give me the broad strokes of what you think the situation is. Life forms and craft have been recovered from some others.
Yes.
Crashed saucers, life forms, wild allegations. But the U.S. military has since confirmed they really do have a UFO investigation still underway. And the objects in the videos are truly unidentified. In Nevada, UFO secrets aren't exactly unfamiliar. The most mysterious, most notorious secret military base in the world exists 100 miles north of Las Vegas. It's known as Area 51. As far back as the 1970s, years before the rest of the world had ever heard of the base, before the government would even admit it existed, our reporters were digging for information about the classified projects underway out there. In 1989, the otherwise obscure facility became a household name all over the world when we introduced a scientist who said he worked out there on alien technology.
Well, there's several, actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs that are out there of extraterrestrial origin.
The live interview with the shadowy Dennis drew international attention. Portions were broadcast by radio in 6 European countries and in a nationally televised TV special in Japan.
Actually 9 flying saucers, flying discs.
Despite numerous inquiries and feelers, Dennis has remained anonymous until now. His real name is Robert Lazar, a young scientist with eclectic interests. The choice of Dennis was an inside joke. He says that's the name of his superior at Groom Lake. It wasn't a joke to Dennis.
He called right after and he said, "Do you have any idea what we're going to do to you now?" And I said, "Well, no." And he hung up the phone.
Lazar's story is by any standards fantastic. He says he's telling it in order to protect himself.
Our team has written and produced more stories about Area 51 than any news organization in the world. Most of those reports aired only once. Now, on Mystery Wire, they've been resurrected in the same form as they originally appeared, as if plucked from a time capsule.
There have been thousands of sightings since then.
The award-winning multi-part news series, UFOs: The Best Evidence, put Area 51 on the map and turned it into a global landmark and tourist attraction. It is as relevant today as it was when it first aired, and now it can be seen again.
There were 9 total that I saw, each one being different. Like they had the assortment pack.
Bob Lazar's still controversial claims recently inspired thousands of people to converge in the Nevada desert for a colorful festival outside the not-so-secret base. Wisely, the crowd didn't try to storm Area 51. We were there. Of all the strange, inexplicable encounters reported in the vicinity of Area 51 over the years, this one might be the biggest surprise of all. It happened as we made the long drive across Tikaboo Valley toward the main entrance to the secret base.
Good, how are you doing? We're with Channel 8 out of Las Vegas.
Okay, how many people in the car?
3.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're
So we're going to ask the vehicle to stay here.
Sure, yeah, of course.
And then there's, you're welcome to walk down and photograph and videotape, as you wish.
The security forces that guard Area 51 are known by many names and for many things, but courtesy has never been one of them. That's never been their job. The so-called camo dudes who lurk on hilltops and pounce on anyone who crosses the line into the base have taken a back seat for this week's events, but security at the base has never been tighter.
And the word came down from the Pentagon, from either Secretary of Defense or Secretary of the Air Force, the perimeter at Area 51 will not be penetrated, period.
Mystery Wire covers much more than UFOs and secret bases. We've followed the paper trail of documents focused on some of the most famous people in the world and historical mysteries that still perplex. That's coming up next. Mystery Wire covers a wide spectrum of historical unknowns and scientific controversies. If you were asked to name the largest, most fearsome creature to ever swim the seas, would your answer be the supposedly fictional monster known as the Kraken?
Release the Kraken!
Hideous and humongous, the Kraken has been part of human lore as far back as Greek mythology. Stories about its gigantic tentacles pulling down entire ships were whispered by 12th century Vikings and resurfaced well into modern times. The theory was that it must have been a type of supersized cephalopod, which was good enough for modern movie makers. But a real-life Kraken? One that feasted on the known ruler of the prehistoric seas? Come on.
So at this point, the Kraken hypothesis is the best thing going to explain this long-standing paleontological mystery.
When geology professor Mark McMenamin first pitched his theory a few years ago, some colleagues said he might as well have been talking about space aliens killing the dinosaurs. Writer Andrew Corrali wondered if the professor had been smoking Kraken.
Well, now, I assure you, we were completely sober when we were at Berlin Ichthyosaur. And, we came across this deployment of bones that just seemed very strange.
All of you fans of the Old West, those who treasure Western movies about cowboys and bandits, sometimes speculate whether their anti-heroes might have escaped the posse and survived after all. Mystery Wire went looking for Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid.
2 bandits were killed in Bolivia, but no witnesses who knew Butch and Sundance identified the bodies as them. In the 1990s, a television program funded an expedition to Bolivia to find the truth. The gravesite, long identified as the resting place of the dead bandits, was dug up. DNA tests were conducted, then compared to the known relatives of Robert Parker and Harry Longabaugh, a.k.a. the Sundance Kid. Experts predicted the mystery would be solved. It wasn't.
And in fact, the DNA evidence proves it's not them, right?
That's exactly right. They used DNA from Harry Longabaugh's brother, and the evidence showed that there was no similarities whatsoever to the 2 men buried in San Vicente, Bolivia.
So what became of the affable bandits? We dug into the archives to find out. It's a multi-part story you can only see on Mystery Wire. Are you spooked by ghost stories? Do creepy old buildings give you the goosebumps? Our team has wandered the hallways of some relics reputed to be the most haunted structures anywhere.
The old schoolhouse, which looks like a place Norman Bates might attend 3rd grade, is shuttered. The hotel, too, has been closed for decades, but that doesn't mean it's been empty.
This room I won't come to alone, and I won't come here in the dark.
Harry Keene is a former district attorney for Esmeralda County and is one of the many residents up here who say he's seen an apparition inside the old hotel.
A more gruesome mystery has plagued and mystified ranchers for more than half a century. Bizarre mutilations of cattle and other animals carved up with surgical precision. Mystery Wire has traveled all over the U.S. to pursue elusive answers.
As an Alabama lawman, he saw dozens of reports of cattle carved with surgical precision in the middle of the night. FBI files show the Bureau took such reports seriously for a period in the late 70s. FBI files show Attorney General Griffin Bell promised to get to the bottom of it. He didn't. 30 years later, the mutilations continue, and no one has ever been caught or punished.
We're talking about literally tens of thousands of cases.
In thousands of cases, no one has ever been caught. Perhaps the biggest unresolved mystery is what happened on that fateful day in Dallas, November 1963. The official story is that Lee Harvey Oswald acted alone in the assassination of President John F. Kennedy. But much of the public doesn't buy it, and with good reason. Mystery Wire digs deep into the JFK conundrum and possible links to various suspects. Before he died years ago, Las Vegas businessman and private eye Robert Mayhew confirmed that he was the point man in an audacious plot cooked up by the CIA. Mayhew recruited Las Vegas mob ambassador Johnny Roselli, who in turn brought in mafia kingpins Sam Giancana of Chicago and Santos Traficante of Florida. At least 5 attempts were made on Castro's life. The Warren Commission didn't even mention Operation Mongoose, a glaring omission, given that a later probe by the House found that JFK probably was the victim of a conspiracy and that the same mob figures might have been in on it. For investigators, the tip-off came when mob crony Jack Ruby gunned down Lee Harvey Oswald.
He's been shot. It's a standard mob hit to shut up the guy.
Another focus of Mystery Wire is technology, including the booming private space race that may one day take us to the stars. More on that next.
A lot of times I think, is that something?
The American desert is a great place to hide secret things, secret projects. Mystery Wire has pursued hundreds of questions and dozens of seemingly improbable clues, such as how did this gun turret from a powerful warship end up in the middle of nowhere? How could the government simply forget about a bunker it built in the ground? What happened to the massive cannon that fired the only atomic artillery shell in history?
Thanks for the ride today. Thank you for the show.
And if the F-117 stealth fighter was officially retired back in 2008, why are so many people still seeing it flying over western skies?
It's still flying. We see it flying over Rachel quite frequently. The last time I personally saw it was maybe 6 months ago.
There have been persistent rumors about underground bases and facilities hidden away from prying eyes and the public. Do such facilities really exist? The answer is yes, and we went deep underground to prove it.
We passed numerous work areas and facilities. It wouldn't be hard to get lost down here. The tunnel has its own power plant. Walk through a curtain, you're in a whole other tunnel. In another area, a gigantic pipe formerly used in nuclear tests.
You're walking through where X-rays from a nuclear device.
One project underway out here is to figure out what other nations might do in their tunnels. Say a rogue nation was building nuclear weapons underground. Could they hide it from us, and how could we disrupt it? Ashbaugh confirms that part of his work is to blow up tunnels.
If we had to, somewhere in the world, take out a tunnel or an underground facility, we'd know how to do it.
We're doing the research work and trying to come to that conclusion to understand how we would do it.
Back on the surface, a still gleaming facility once held the promise of riding atomic rockets to the moon or Mars or beyond. That dream was cut short, but private entrepreneurs have picked up the challenge. A new space race is underway, and Mystery Wire has had a front row seat to some of the most innovative technology.
This is a standalone spacecraft. It doesn't really depend on anything else. And it can orbit the moon, or it can be in LEO, low Earth orbit, or it could actually be used on the way to Mars.
Billionaire Robert Bigelow doesn't like to be interviewed on camera, but he gave his first ever interview to Mystery Wire and has since allowed us front row access to his work, building what could be the world's first private space station.
So it not only has a tremendous bandwidth of different uses in low Earth orbit, about 25 different kinds of uses, like maybe a dormitory would be one, growing food would be two, so about 25 of those kinds of uses. And then it definitely can be a lunar depot.
Decades ago, another brilliant billionaire pursued ambitious dreams and new technology. He also invested in Las Vegas casinos and Hollywood movies. Anyone that rich and eccentric is bound to attract attention. Mystery Wire reported on the Howard Hughes files compiled by the FBI.
Now, don't forget, every bill comes to me. They don't pay for anything.
A Hollywood movie about the life of industrialist and Las Vegas casino kingpin Howard Hughes intimated that Hughes relied on booze and sexual favors to coax defense officials into buying Hughes airplanes. The huge FBI file on Hughes seems to confirm the legend. FBI memos show agents watched as Hughes entertained customers with liquor and women to secure contracts.
The government also kept files on singer Frank Sinatra and glamorous movie star Marilyn Monroe. Mystery Wire dug up the files. A lot of major stars share our interest in the unknown. More on that in a moment. Mystery Wire is the world's largest archive of journalistically vetted content about the unknown, the unidentified, secrets, cover-ups, and the flat-out strange. These topics are of interest across the board, even among the rich and famous, and we know because we've asked some of them, including Rock and Roll Hall of Famer John Fogerty.
I was up over the neighborhood, just a little bit above the telephone poles and the trees, and I'm flying around, you know, it was kind of like this. But I had this dream from the time I was 6 until I was about 12. I had the dream over and over and over and over. And there always seemed to be a presence, like a person that I was aware of, that I knew. A guide, if you will.
We've enjoyed conversations with the great Carlos Santana, international pop star Robbie Williams, late comedic genius George Carlin, and others. One unique feature of the site is the chance to hear long-form interviews and informal give and takes, unedited. You can watch and listen as often as you want on the website, on YouTube, on our podcasts, or connect on other social media platforms. This will be a living, breathing entity with new content added every day, as well as one-of-a-kind news reports from our vast archives and affiliates all over the country. Mystery Wire is alive. We invite you to lose yourself in the unknown.
A lot of times I think,